Hey YouTubers, it's me, Lonnie Clark Art again, and this video is actually going to be, I'm recording an Audacity podcast at the same time, so I want to welcome the listeners of my podcast on Thursday night. Actually, I'm going to take a little second and a break because I'm going to edit that part out. You guys on my YouTube channel are going to see all of this because I'm not going to edit out the YouTube channel, but hold on, I'm going to start. This video was actually made so I can do a podcast for KEPW and get the information out on YouTube at the same time. So the only way I figured that I could do that was make a video on YouTube live, keep it private until I'm finished, and then record on Audacity at the same time. So I've got Audacity going at the same time as this podcast. And then I'm going to chop up the end on the beginning and the end on the Audacity thing, and bada bing, we've got two mediums at one, and I don't have to pay a boatload of money to put them in two different places. Anyways, I want to thank my followers and subscribers on YouTube for being really very loyal. I have a solid group of 400 or 500 people, closer to 400 people that have been with me a long time. And, you know, I really want to encourage all of us, again, to lean into government because let me stop. I'm going to take a little 5-second break, you guys, and I'm going to do my radio podcast. Good evening. This is your host, Lonnie Clark, with the Age of Fission radio show. And I want to thank all of you for joining me. I am actually doing a live feed on YouTube as well as, collecting the audio from my podcast, which airs on KEPW 97.3 FM LP. That means low power, serving Eugene and Springfield and the surrounding areas. It is a 501(c)(3) organization, so your donations are definitely wanted. Please go to www.kepw.org, where you can listen to this show live, the Age of Fission radio show. It's not live, but I post them up at 11 p.m. on Thursday night. And actually, true confessions, I have not been posting up any shows lately because I have just been somewhat of a heartbroken activist, to be honest. I haven't really felt like it really mattered, but it does matter to me. So I pay attention and I go to my YouTube and I go to the Facebook and I look on Twitter and I pay attention to stuff. I just don't actively engage here on YouTube anymore. Mostly because I feel like we're like part of the white noise. However, we're not really the white noise because this is important to know about. I was on a Facebook page about the Hanford Challenge. I don't even know which Facebook page it was, but it was something about the Northwest. And they were talking about, and again, here I go, there was legislation or something that they were trying to pass up in Washington, and I made a comment on their page like, wow, I could drive up there and testify, but I'm not part of, I live in Oregon, would it matter? That person responded and said, you've got your own stuff to look after. There's 3 bills in the Oregon State Legislature you need to stop. And I was like, honestly, really? But I have to admit, I wouldn't call myself a lazy activist. I have just been not an activist. I have not looked at the new legislature. It opened up in January. If I had it in my mind to really track the nuclear thing, I would look immediately in January. Well, I guarantee you after this year, I'm going to. However, I did look at the calendar at the Oregon State Legislature to see if these 3 bills, because I had found out, once she told me about that, I went to look at the Oregon State Legislature, printed them up, made some phone calls. I called the chairman of each committee and said, I want you to make this die in committee because we don't even want 2 hours to be discussed, not one. Oregon's already decided. Look at a map of all the nuclear waste sites all around the country. The only place there isn't is Oregon. And that's because in 1980, the Oregon voters voted for no. Well, they didn't say no to nuclear. It was very interesting. This is how they got it passed. They weren't that close-minded. They said, okay, you have to give us a proposal for a nuclear waste site that is solid and proven and approved, and you're going to tell us exactly where it's going to go before you start making it and what the safety standards are. That was an important thing. It was called siting. You have to have a designated site for the nuclear waste. The other thing that they passed was that if any nuclear facilities are going to be built in Oregon, you have to get the voters to approve. So these bills, very similar to, you remember a few years ago, those of you that are watching my YouTube channel, Kevin Finnegan and I, and a group of people found out, because it had gotten its way out of committee and into public office, to build these small modular nuclear reactors. We all flooded the state capitol from Eugene, Portland, Salem. That room that was supposed to fit like 30, 35, maybe 50, 75, something like that. Packed would be 100. It was bursting at the gills. People were standing outside. And we all testified. It was a public hearing. People testified. Kevin Finnegan testified. I testified. I believe my friend Louisa Hamachek testified. There was people, everybody testified. Hanford Challenge was there. It was like the uppity ups. If you guys have been in the anti-nuclear field in the Northwest, it was, for me, pretty intimidating as like a timid little radio person. Like, I was too afraid to even talk to these people. I got their cards, but I did call them back, but I didn't pursue them because I just like, I'm not a professional journalist. Like, if you guys want professional journalism, listen to Nuclear Hot Seat. In fact, everybody needs to listen to Nuclear Hot Seat if you want to know what's going on for real. And it's not lies and propaganda. The nuclear industry will say all these, quote, scientists have hyperbole. No, they don't. They have actual science. These are people who have done the science, and they're certified scientists that she interviews, and people that have gotten real, they win in courts. You know, I mean, honestly, when we hear about people losing in court, it's usually not over the evidence, it's over jurisdiction. But I'm digressing, you guys. I really want to talk to us about these bills, because I have done a lot of research on them. I did get busy. That lady, I was very happy to have her tell me, you know, about them. It was stunning. House bill, there's a Senate bill, there's 2 House bills and 1 Senate bill. So what they've done is they've broken up the efforts to get small modular reactors into the House and into the Senate bill. So they're spreading the love, so to speak. But I did notice that, like, in our off years, because we have a biannual budget system, so every 2 years it gets reviewed. So the years where the budget is coming up is when they submit the bills. Throwing spaghetti at the wall. The only danger is now, and I will say this to Oregonians, Art Robinson, we all ought to be drinking nuclear water, got himself elected on the district that is on Eastern Oregon. And I think it's like in the Bend area. And he sits on the House Environment and Energy Committee. He's actually a member. So, you know, I don't know how this is going for you guys on YouTube, because I'm kind of like weird. I'm used to like looking, not even talking to the camera when I'm doing my radio show. So I'm sort of talking into the microphone and looking at the camera. On the radio show, it doesn't matter, but for the camera, it's kind of an awkward thing. But I really want to put this up on YouTube, and I don't know how to like turn an Audacity thing into a YouTube channel. And I did buy, again, many of you know this, a Pinnacle software thing, which looks like a foreign language to me. And I've probably had 3 people promise they'd come over and help me do it. And so far, this is the best you get. And I think it's been like, 2 or 3 years. So anyways, here we are. Senate Bill 390, submitted by Senator Boquist, who is a Republican. This bill basically exempts these small modular reactors from the restrictions on the nuclear fuel. You remember I said where it had to be, they had to have it. It also requires that the small modular reactors be sited in a city or a county where electors of a city or county have approved small modular reactors. In other words, the city council has to approve it, or the county commissioners have to approve it, not the voters. That is one of the big things. It doesn't say that. The summary says it doesn't say that it's exempting that, but that's what the legislation says. It's not just that it does have to be approved by the city council, but what it does say is many of the sections where the voters have to have approval, all of those don't apply to the small modular reactors. Now, this is in the Senate, and it goes, these are the Oregon sections. I'll just read them. 469.595, 97, 599, and 601. So all of those basically refer to all the other stuff we're going to talk about. Now, I found out from, I don't think it was Isabel that called me back. I think it was Tess from the House. But I did find out that this bill is still in the committee, and I did look at the committee's calendar until the end of February. And until the end of February, it's not scheduled. So what I did was I actually called the chairman of the Senate Energy Bill, the Energy and Environment Committee. What was his name? Brian Clem is mine, but he's a guy out of Springfield, Oregon. His name escapes me. But I called him and said, look, I hope you're going to let this die in committee because, this doesn't belong to go anywhere. And I also called the House chairman and said the same thing on these two bills. Okay, so we have two bills in the House that were submitted, and this is the committee where Art Robinson sits. He's not a senator. He is a House of Representative. And, they build their stepping stones. Usually you enter the House and then you go to the Senate if you are ambitious, I suppose. Anyways, I did talk to Tess, and I told her, I'm really concerned that these are going in there. And it was interesting because that was like the day after I discovered that these kinds of bills had been submitted like on a 2-year basis. And then I kind of put it 2 and 2 together because we have a biannual budget. So that just means like they grease somebody's palm along the way. The lobbyist pays somebody, gives somebody money. I looked into their contributions and I didn't see a direct link between New Scale, but then we didn't see their 2020 expenses yet. So that's the thing. Like they just got reelected, right? So now their campaign contributions aren't going to be up in public venue till they get audited and go through this all huge legal process, which I'm sure is all perfectly legal. But it's going to take us like 8 to 9 months to even begin to find out who greased their palms to put these bills in, right? On to the House, the little guys. Who's my House member? His name is Representative Brian Clem, and my senator is Senator Peter Courtney, and that's because I live in District 11 in Salem, Oregon. And in the House, I am in District 21 in Salem, Oregon. But these House bills are small. Look, for my YouTube video, people, 1 page. Like, literally, that's the whole thing. This one is literally 1 page and a little tiny bit. See? So let me read them to you because they're quite interesting. They broke up the same idea. Now, again, these bills are in committee. They're not going anywhere. So I did call the head of the House Energy and Environment Committee and say, I, as a taxpayer, and the Oregon taxpayers have already voted this long ago, and it has not advanced that much. I mean, I actually think what I'm going to do is do a follow-up letter and put it into writing and make my position clear. We don't have answers to nuclear contamination yet at all. We don't have a storage site. These ideas of putting the design of the small nuclear modular reactors, and I'm just spewing this term out and I apologize. The design of them is to sit on the footprint of a standard, approximately the standard of a nuclear reactor site, which usually holds 2 towers. It's gigantic. These are not small areas, right? But instead of building 2 big, gigantic ones, let's just build small ones because they're easier to build, and they could one of the arguments against nuclear is that we don't have cookie cutter designs. Well, part of that is that they're kind of big, gigantic machines, and those are very difficult to duplicate. Here I go again, looking at my microphone. Sorry, you guys, on my YouTube channel. But these small modular reactors, so they have like a big, gigantic site, and they're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to put a dozen on one site, the same size. And the idea is that they build them up as they go. But you still have the capacity for a nuclear meltdown. They say they don't because it's how they're going to build it halfway into the ground. So what is that going to do to the groundwater if they have a really bad issue? I mean, these have all been hypotheticals. It's beyond comprehension to me that these are even allowed. The lady said, well, they have to allow the bills because people prepare them. But maybe we should just write up some bills that say you can't waste our time on these things until you get us answers. And maybe what we ought to do is push for the nuclear industry through legislation. And this might be something that the people at Beyond Nuclear would understand. I think we need to get legislation to change the standards for testing and for reporting, because the reporting is completely inaccurate. The reporting of, quote, safe levels of radiation is for external use only, and those are only measured on a 28-year-old healthy male, while we know that children, infants, women, and young people are tremendously much more affected. So we ought to have different levels. We ought to have sound levels of advisory for people, because it's just not as safe for a pregnant woman to be living near a nuclear site as it is for, say, a 30-year-old man or a 40-year-old woman even. So I guess I am qualifying myself as what they would deem anti-nuclear, but I'm not. I don't consider myself anti-nuclear. I just think, like John Goffman, it's an industry that needs to be respected. It's a science that has not been respected, and we have just been lied to about it. And these bills passing their way through, listen to this, House Bill 2332. Repeals provisions requiring that before issuing site certificate for nuclear fueled thermal power plant, Energy Facility Siting Council, the Energy Facility Siting Council must find that repository for disposal of waste produced by plant is licensed. Listen to the language in this. This is their summary. They make this so illiterate, like they just do it intentionally, I believe. Energy Facility Siting Council must find that repository for disposal of waste produced by plant is licensed to operate by federal government. So it's repealing that. Repeals previous provisions requiring that proposal by council to ensure site certificate must be approved by voters. Do you get what they're saying? They're saying that you don't have to put this, notwithstanding. Okay, so let's get a little bit clear of what it's saying. The new one, as used in this section, high-level radioactive waste means spent nuclear fuel or the radioactive byproducts from reprocessing of spent nuclear fuel. Also, spent nuclear fuel means nuclear fuel rods or assemblies that have been irradiated in a power reactor and subsequently removed from that reactor. Wow. Spent nuclear fuel. Section 3 repeals all of Oregon 469.590, 469.593, 469.595, 469.597, 469.599, 469 by .601 by Section 1 of this 2021 Act applies to nuclear fuel thermal power plants for which a notice of intent to file an application for site certificate under Oregon 469.330 is filed on or after the effective date of this 2021 Act. So what they're doing is in Section 1, all of those ones I just read to you, they're all repealed. This bill repeals all of the requirements to have a safe nuclear thermal siting plant, repeals the council's oversight, repeals that it needs to be licensed by the federal government, repeals the provisions that the council must be approved by the voters. That's House Bill 2332. Well. It is still in committee and it is not scheduled anywhere on their committee throughout the month of February. Now, will it make it to March or April? I hope not, because I myself have already called them and asked them to please do not even bring it to the table, because we will fight it. There's enough of us who will get out and testify that these people have no solutions still. House Bill 2692, or should we say Mr. Art Robinson, who loves to drink nuclear water. He's the guy in the House right now who believes that nuclear is safe. He advertised here in Lane County while he was trying to beat Peter DeFazio. He would, in his advertisements, now whether it was true or not, he had his kids drinking glasses of radiated water, saying it doesn't hurt you at all. House Bill 2692. This was sponsored by Representative Witt, and the previous one was sponsored by Representative Bonham. And I have to admit, I called his office and spoke to his guy, and at first I was somewhat rude to him. I have to apologize again. I did apologize to him right away, but he started spewing out these lies, how safe nuclear is and how it's not the same nuclear power facilities that those old ones were, and how it's really safe. And I was like, I am not letting you talk to me like this. And he got uppity with me. He's like, I'm not letting you talk to me like this. I don't have to take it. And I'm like, okay. Let's just start over. I apologize. I was like, I wanted to be able to talk to him. I did not want to step on his toes and tell him that he was, for not doing his own research. So, okay. So here we are with Bill. Now, I did not get a chance. I called their office, Representative Witt, called their office. Nobody answered, but it is the COVID world. So they're all telecommuting, you know what I mean? So who knows? This is what this one says: exempts issuance of site certificates for small modular reactors or small modular nuclear reactors, as Libby Halevi will remind me, from requirement that proposal of Energy Facility Site Council. Now, Energy Facility Site Council is the name that they're giving to this siting council, is the name that they're giving to like this oversight committee here in Oregon. To issue a site certificate for nuclear fuel thermal power plant must be approved by voters. So it's exempting that. You get it? It exempts the issuance that it must be approved by voters. Requires State Department of Energy, listen to this, to develop and administer program for educating the public about nuclear modular reactors. So let's just skip all the part where it's talking about we're going to throw away all of the rules that the voters have voted for because we're going to build these small nuclear reactors and they're safe, so don't worry about it. And they're doing it for our greenhouse. Hold on just one second. Or even YouTube. I hope I did. Anyways, the small modular reactors. Small modular reactors means a nuclear fission reactor that has an output that does not exceed 300 megawatts per module. So they're really, how much money are we going to get out of this? It's going to build 300 megawatts of output per module. I don't know. I honestly, to me, I think that this is dangerous. Okay, so it throws away the key on all of those rules to exempt this. And subsections do not apply to the proposal by the council to issue a certificate for a single or multi-modular reactor plant. Oh, so also the subsections where they're talking about the subsections of the old rules, and this is kind of, this is why I skipped them, because this is what's been in there. Subsection 2 is the spent nuclear fuel and also the site certificate, okay, where it has to be approved by the voters. So they can build that. They also do not apply to, you notice how they sneak this in on the site certificate for a single or multi-module small modular reactor plant. So they could say, okay, we're going to build a nuclear power plant, an SMR facility, but we want to build 5 of them all at one time. We don't want to just build 1. We want to get 5 going. And the city council or the county commissioners could go, sure, no problem. Okay, now listen to this. This is shocking. Here comes the propaganda program. Section 4. The State Department of Energy shall develop and administer a program for providing information and education to the public about small modular reactors. Listen to this. The program requires that this section shall provide education and information on A, the operational safety of small modular nuclear reactors, the safety of storing high-level radioactive waste from small modular nuclear reactors in a terminal repository licensed to operate in the appropriate agency of the federal government, and C, the potential for the use in Oregon of energy generated by small modular reactors to further Oregon's greenhouse green emission goals. And Section 5, this is where it gets rich. In addition to and in not lieu of any other appropriation, there is appropriated to the State Department for the biennium beginning of July 1, 2021, out of the general fund, the amount of, unfilled in yet, which may be expended for developing and administering the program required by Section 4 of this Act 2021. So Section 4 was what? The propaganda machine. That's what this says. So even if they don't get the funding for the nuclear reactors right away, we're starting the propaganda machine right away, folks. These bills are dangerous. And if you live in Oregon, you need to be calling your state legislature, and you need to be calling your representative, your senator, and you need, I strongly suggest, look them up. Just go to OregonLegislature.gov and just type in your zip code, see who your representatives are, and then look up the House committees. It's right there on the front page. House committee. It's Energy and It's Environment and Energy Committee. I don't know why it's the other way, and I think we know why it's the other way around. So, and just tell them, look, be very nice, and just say, look, we appreciate the work you're doing, but we really want you to stick to what the Oregon voters want. That's why we live in Oregon. We do not want nuclear here. We are not having these small modular reactors. We're not having nuclear waste stored underground in our groundwater. Bad enough, most of us live on very active earthquake fault zones. There's huge earthquake zones around here, all along the West Coast. Let's just be clear. It's outrageous. So, hold on, you guys. Let me check on the Audacity thing. Okay, there we go. Hi again. Hey, YouTubers. So how's about that, man? So this is also, I wanted to talk to you guys about, your own personal activism. It is very, very, very important that each of us contact our elected officials. The thing is about democracy, we don't have a democracy because not enough people actually lean into it. Going to the polls once every 4 years or once every 2 years is not enough. The nuclear industry isn't resting on their laurels. They submitted this year. They just installed Art Robinson. So let me give you a little bit of history for those of you who don't live in Oregon. Art Robinson has been running against Pete DeFazio in my district. I have been here since 2004. Practically every year. I was not a, nuclear. I didn't understand what he did or any of that stuff. And I wasn't really into local politics at all when I came here. I mean, I really just came here to rebuild my life. I have an interest in politics because I think even though you don't like politics, it likes you, right? Politics determines where you go to school, what your level of education is, what happens in your life. Because the people that use your tax dollars determine a lot about your livelihood and your opportunities, as well as your own parents, you know what I mean? And your own free will. So, but I mean, it has a lot to do with your basic opportunities. It has politics because, I mean, it's the politicians who decide who's going to get our money, right? So Pete Robinson went against Art Robinson went against Peter DeFazio almost every year I lived in Eugene. And this past year, I just moved to Salem. And guess what happened this year? He didn't get elected in the Eugene Springfield area. He went out to Trump country out by Bend and got himself elected as a conservative. Now, this is a man who had advertised drinking nuclear water as a safeguard. I don't even know if it's still up on his website. He calls himself a scientist. He says he thinks it helps our bodies build up an immunity to drink nuclear waste. I mean, literally, it's inhumane. Some of the things that, he looks like he truly believes it too. When you see him talking on the radio, it's unconscionable. That man is now on the Environment and Energy Committee. Do you think the nuclear industry, you know how much money they used to spend? In 2016, they spent $32 million trying to unseat Pete DeFazio. And they came close. It was the closest they had. He still wins year after year, because there's nobody really to compete with him. I mean, this is how that crazy lady in Georgia got elected, because nobody really ran against her. Georgians didn't pick her. She picked them. She ran. She's like, hey, I'm going to go do this. And people are like, okay, a fresh face, click. I mean, it's what happened with Art Robinson. People don't remember the fight he had out here with Peter DeFazio. People in Bend, they don't know. But he talks the conservative talk, which is not conservative, if you ask me. And I think that's another one of my hot buttons. We need to take our language back, because it's not conservative to destroy our planet with nuclear and chemical contamination. But this is another thing that I really think that we need to talk about. Like, find out what's going on in your own district, what's going on in your own little neck of the woods, and get engaged, because the people that want to harm our environment, they don't stop. And it's not illegal. These are lobbying monies that goes into campaigns. They pay for things. They do things. It's just, it's a bad system, but guess what? It's the system. So my question is, where's all those rich progressives? Where's all those people that can grease the palms of the people up in Salem right now to say, you know what, we're not taking nuclear back in our country, and we're stopping it? Because honestly, you guys, go take a look at a little map. All you have to do is say nuclear contamination sites in the U.S. Type that in, and you see this map with dots all over it. Like, it's just unbelievable. But then there's a little spot that has one or two, because Oregon has 2 sites that are really bad. I guess 3. And sometimes it will show all three, but most of the time it just shows the one in Albany and the one in Ideal. Ideal is a military site, and Albany was a Manhattan Project site, which I interviewed about on my radio show. And then there's also, I reported it on my YouTube channel a few years ago. I think it's called Lakeview, Oregon, where it's a uranium hole in a mountain, and they just put sand around it every 10 years. That's their answer. That's the nuclear industry's only obligation. That's their solution. Go out there every 10 years and put sand to keep it running into the forest. That's not a solution. That is not a solution. And we have nuclear contamination. I actually, you know what I've been thinking about, actually? We should, what we really need to do is push for a couple of things. One is legislation to demand that nuclear standards be revised to be more accurate and more truthful, because they only contain information about all nuclear standards are for external exposure. All nuclear standards are for a man who is 28 years old, 150 pounds, perfectly healthy and good health. Now, if you're anything outside of that, your exposure levels vary differently, but it's dramatically worse for babies, children, toddlers, girls, boys, women, young people. And of course, you know, a lot of people get cancers when they're very old because these seeds that are planted when they're small come to fruition 30, 40 years later. So it's that's what they mean when they say DNA destroying. We don't know what it's going to do to you. So, you know, I know someone who believes his heart disease is directly caused by cesium affecting his heart because they have something in his heart. Now, will they test him for heavy metals so they could confirm it? No, they're not going to do that. That's what they say. Like, to me, that's unconscionable that we're not even testing people for nuclear contamination or chemical contamination, trying to figure out what's causing these cancers, what's causing these weird diseases that people are getting, or the birth defects. People didn't just always have this. You know, we'd probably have way less babies because we'd have a lot. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. We'd probably have just 1 billion more people. I don't know. This whole thing is just outrageous. And I think, you know, John Goffman wrote that book, Population Control Through Nuclear Contamination. The title of the book, as he says in the book, was kind of tongue-in-cheek. But it's become apparent that it's not. This is a serious issue. We really must take this to task. We must take our current lawmakers to task, not allow these bills to even get out of committee. That's the first push. Look on your own legislature. And, you know, for my own purposes, I actually went on to Nevada, where I know there's a lot of nuclear contamination. I attempted to look around, and I certainly appreciate the web designer in Oregon now, because Nevada website was quite complicated, used language that was not common language. I think that this is intentional. So people in Nevada, you kind of have to be clever and really pay attention and understand your website on your legislature. But I would strongly suggest that everybody go to their state legislature and just look at the bills and key in the word nuclear and see what happens. Because I guarantee you, in a lot of states, they're doing a lot of things. The nuclear industry has not forgotten you. You know, they remember. They are like white on rice. They get what they want when they want it, just like they're doing here in Oregon. Only, you know what? This has not been scheduled. None of these bills have been scheduled for a hearing or a meeting inside the committee, which is good news. And I really believe if we can even get like 5, 10, 15, 20 people calling the committee chair at the House and the committee chair at the Senate of the Environment and Energy Committee, and just call them. Let me see if I can look at that number really quick. If I still have it up, I will give it to you. Hold on just a second. So where did I go? I'm trying to get my mouse thing to work. Okay, so the House Committee Representatives, I think that's it. So the bills and the laws, here's the committee. And the House committees in Oregon, you can go to the House committees in Oregon. It's just committee assignments. It's very, very simple. Energy and environment. It's called energy and environment. And the representative in Oregon of the House committee, where we want to definitely stop these two House bills, 2692 and 2332. That is Representative Pam Marsh. Her phone number is 503-986-1405. And call her and be respectful and just leave a message and say, you know what, we really would like to just let this die in committee, because as Oregon voters, we have voted and we chose to not have nuclear. And we do not want to have nuclear in our state. And it's actually an insult for them to keep doing this. But they, it was very sweet. Tess was on the phone with me and let me voice some of my frustration. And she was very sweet to me, you guys. She basically said, look, they're entitled to submit their bills. Now, whether they get looked at, and I think, what's happened is she's been around the block on this one several times, because when I looked at the history and I saw it had been resubmitted, I'm not the first person who wanted to stop these bills, and I'm sure I'm not the last. You know what I mean? And so she's had to really figure out a way to communicate with people like me who jump into this without any organizing background, without any interpersonal skills. After all, I'm single, haven't really been out on a date in forever. I seem to be like a bull in a china shop when I talk to people. I'm good at work, but outside of that, not so much. So she was very sweet about it all, because she's right. Anybody can submit a bill. It doesn't get out of committee. That's up to the committee chair. Now, the senator, his name is Senator Lee Beyer, Beyer, out of Springfield, District 6. And so this is your senators, people who are living in District 6 in Springfield, Oregon, on KEPW. Call Mr. Beyer. And in fact, everybody should. Anybody listening to this should just still call at, say, 503-986-1706, and be respectful. You probably just get a message and just say, we understand that Senate Bill 360 has been placed in your committee and it is not on the calendar. And we want to thank you for that. And we want to make sure it stays off the calendar, because we don't even want 1 hour of our time being wasted on this, because we will stop it. Oregon voters want to have control over whether nuclear comes into our state or not. And just be very nice about it and thank them for their service to our country, because really they are doing a service to our country. Yes, it's a prestigious job, but it is also a pain in the neck to have 1 million people calling you randomly, right? So this is why democracy is not really fun, so to speak, because you get pressure from the party higher ups and pressure from 1 million people you don't know. So I can appreciate that after having had a YouTube channel where I get maliciously attacked every time I post a video by a few people that are just relentless. And I believe they are actually paid by the nuclear industry. I can't imagine it's like a personal vendetta, because, I just block them. It doesn't matter, but they're relentless. So that is what people's up against. And in fact, that fact of these relentless people is why people don't actively engage. And I would also say to people and Americans, let's just talk to Americans, because I can't talk to other nations. It is up to us to decide we want democracy. It is up to us. And, with the insurgency that went on recently, the Capitol building, the one thing that these people were saying is, we want our country back, but back from what? These are people that genuinely believe wild things. Now, they look at me like I'm a complete idiot, but honestly, you want your country back, get engaged in democracy, run for office. How do you think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got in office? She was like, screw that guy. She went around house to house and met everybody, and they remembered her face and they voted for her. They talked to her. She's wildly popular in her district because she talked to them. She's accessible. I had firsthand in helping somebody get elected in Eugene. He got elected because we canvassed an area that nobody had ever done before. It was a small area and it was kind of a downtrodden area, so nobody ever really wanted to go through there. By Eugene standards, it was a ghetto. By LA standards, it was a good neighborhood. So I had no problem walking through it. And we actually got someone elected. And that was Rob Handy. People in Springfield and Eugene, Oregon understand this. But you know what the Republicans did? Again, once again, just like the nuclear industry, they're not going to forget you. They went after him. They made false accusations, made him spend boatloads of money, smeared him publicly. Almost impossible. It made him not even want to run again. Like, he was a one-term county commissioner, and he was a great county commissioner. But this is what we're up against. So this is why we have to be relentless. So go to your state legislatures in whatever state you live in. Look at their calendars. Text in the box nuclear or whatever. Pick a thing. Like, if it's not nuclear, pick the thing. Get engaged. We have like how many adults in this country? I mean, I don't know. And it doesn't take that many voices. That's the very interesting thing. We put a little bit of pressure on them and they understand that we could represent many more people. So that's why they respect us, because we do represent many more people. We're not the outliers. If people know the real danger of nuclear, read Libby Halevi's book. Yes, I Glow in the Dark. Read Helen Caldicott's book. The New Nuclear Danger. Read Poison Power by John Goffman. I mean, there's books and books and books and books you can read. But, the bottom line is you can read all the books you want, but if you don't lift a finger to make a phone call, you might as well not even read the books, because that information is there. It's like Carl Grossman said, we need everybody. Carl Grossman, actually, that's Carl with a K, KarlGrossman.com. I recommend everybody go to his website. He wrote a book called Cover Up What You're Not Supposed to Know About Nuclear Power. It's on his page under books. You can it's called a free sample, but it's actually the whole entire book. And it has an addendum since Fukushima happened, but it's the same story. Nothing's really changed. They haven't done anything different, you guys. So you can get it. It's a free ebook. You can read that. But one of the things he says is we have to get engaged. And I, for one, have not been engaged because I got heartbroken that there weren't millions of people out there saying, hey, let's stop this. But thank God it doesn't take a million people to stop stuff like this. It takes a few phone calls. Resistance, is happiness. So I genuinely believe that 100%. Let me check on my Audacity file again here, you guys. Well, I'm going on, I think I'm like 46, 45 minutes on the Audacity file. I think I'm going to end the YouTube video stream. I don't think I really need to do a full hour. I really appreciate my YouTube channel, because the people that have been following me on YouTube have been following me through Nuts for Art on, listen to me read the book Poison Power, listen to me read nuclear contamination, population control through nuclear contamination. They also help, they listen to me read Carl Grossman's book, Weapons in Space, which I highly recommend everybody read that little 100-page book. Helen Caldicott's book, The New Nuclear Danger, I read that. I mean, I even read the Mina No Data Site book, the little booklet that tells us what the real levels of radioactivity are in Fukushima. I read these books because I thought that if people heard this information, that we could get millions and millions of people to stand up and say, we're not going to do nuclear contamination anymore. That hasn't really happened. And I think that it's because we realize that it's everywhere. So what we really need to do is push for science and scientists and education. I really believe we need to demand education of our children, because we need a whole generation of scientists and little brains that can unfission the fission. That's what we want. I want to be able to have a radio show called The Unfission Show. How about that one, The Unfission Show? Where we talk about these miracle things that they've done to reverse the nuclear and chemical contamination for the last 150 years or whatever, So I don't know. Anyways, you guys, I am going to end. I want to thank my audience on KEPW. Please, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can certainly send me an email at nutzforart, nutzforart@gmail. My YouTube channel is Nuts for Art, same just like my Gmail. And I do encourage everyone to please put your courage feet on. You only need your courage when things are challenging. But like Thomas Ackerman says, everybody knows what's the right thing to do. And the right thing is not nuclear. And we do not need to be putting small modular nuclear reactors in Oregon to save greenhouse gases. Just like the same people that are whining and crying because Joe Biden's shutting down the fossil fuel industry before it kills us in the next 2 to 3 years. That people are whining about are going to be replaced with other jobs. And that is the nature of it. The question is, how quickly can we get up the other jobs that will help us keep back up to speed? America's has anybody taken a look at our trains and our train stations compared to the rest of the world? It's really pathetic. We've got our train stations are 30, 40, 50 years old. The rest of the world has high-speed trains, high-speed internet. Even their internet is faster than ours. It's not just our medical industry that sucks. So, again, we need to lean into legislation and demand that America come back up to speed and that we be who we think that we tell the world we are. And let's just do it. Part of that is stopping nuclear completely in its feet. I just cannot get over that anybody wants to build another nuclear power plant in this entire country. That is not acceptable. Tell us. They don't even tell us. So, anyways, you guys, put your courage feet on. Thank you, KEPW 97.3 LP. No, wait, let me say that again. I beg your pardon. My YouTube video people get to hear all of this. I want to thank everybody listening to the Age of Fission radio show. I probably will be putting up another podcast next Thursday on this issue because I want to update you on information I found. I hope you're going to take action and call the Oregon State Legislature and tell them to please leave these bills in committee. Senate Bill 360, House Bill 2332, House Bill 2692. You've been listening to www.kepw.org, 97.3 FM LP, serving Eugene, Springfield, and the surrounding area. Thanks for listening, you guys. Put it on. And if you want to contribute to KEPW, please go to www.kepw.org, drop down menu, click on support, and there's plenty of ways to send money. Put your courage feet on, you guys. Talk to you later.